We're the business. You all know our names. But just in
What's the
case,
name?
I'm Eric.
I'm Eric. No, I'm Eric. That's Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris.
Wait, I thought I was Eric.
Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, and first of all, we want to thank the Kagoshima University with Ami, Yuka, Kaho, Shiho, and
gross.
Oh, dang.
Lucky you guys.
what is it called? Sticky Tuesday.
みんな可愛いね。
So, why we chose this topic? Well, business is very invaluable to any nation and culture. It's a central part of how our economy works and whatnot. We can gain some insights into Japanese culture and cultural influences through business interactions, and of course because we like money. I mean, who does not like money?
Money good, money good.
No money.
No
Money,
money.
no money. No money. All right. So our agenda, we did foreign brands in Japan, small businesses in Japan, and product sales in Japan. So moving on
So
first.
everything's in Japan.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Moving on first. Foreign brands in Japan.
Ayo. Okay, so foreign brands in Japan. So first off, I'm going to be covering what companies are exactly in Japan with a focus on Kagoshima. And then afterwards, I'm going to be dialing in more on the automotive industry, mobile phones, and Costco. So we asked the Kagoshima students exactly what type of foreign brands they were aware of that were in. And this is the entire list that they gave us.
すごい。
They wanted to give us more, but Eric put a stop to it.
鹿児島にもコスコがあるの。
うん。
知らなかった。
Costco.
EA, Electronic Arts.
What?
Exactly.
すごい。
No, they have different studios everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Let's see, moving on. Okay, so first off is the automotive section.
Which one?
Oh, is that?
Yeah, so one of the most important things about business is advertising, and Japan has some of the most famous advertising, so you're going to be able to see some of it when it pertains to each and every subject. So.
All right, so first off, just like in the US, there are companies that do well and others that don't. For our purposes, we're going to be introducing a German manufacturer, Mercedes, and comparing it to the American General Motors. So obviously one fails and one succeeds. Mercedes has been known to be quite successful in Japan, and this is usually because, number one, the driver's side is located on the right side, and most drivers in Japan are usually on the right side. Unfortunately, GM, most of their main lineup is on the left-hand side, and they don't want to change that at all. But they do have several cars, but obviously, like I said before, not on their main line. And then Mercedes, they'll usually incorporate pop culture, especially like animes and video games, into their commercials, alongside with the usual ones that talk about, hey, you should buy this car for X amount of money. And meanwhile, on the other hand, GM, I haven't seen any advertisements that are interesting on YouTube, let alone any at all, even the regular ones. Plus, since it's an American brand, they'll usually view things like pop cultures, like cartoon and animes, as more childish. And let's see here. And also, Mercedes will usually go to great lengths in order to incorporate the needs and values of the Japanese or any other country for that matter. But GM, they've only just barely begun trying to think about, hey, how can we change our company so that it can affect global sales?
Market research is important.
And then trends can also affect sales. So obviously Japan, there's not really much of a need for cars unless if you live out in the countryside. because they have a very mature mass public transportation system. And well, unlike over here in America where cars are definitely important, they don't really see a need for it. And then car ownership is typically seen as a major burden to the Japanese because, then they have to pay for the car ownership, they have to pay for gas, they have to pay for, all those awesome things. And then I forgot where exactly I heard it, but apparently after a few years, they are actually required to purchase a new car and then sell the old ones off somewhere so that it can get crushed because, the Japanese, they value the environment and everything, like the religious group said. And let's see, the old cars usually, they won't filter out as many of the toxic chemicals out. And then also mobile technology has also cut down on the number of car sales as well. So moving on to mobile phones, we asked the Kagoshima students exactly what brands of phones that they had. And they specifically told us that they had a Sony Xperia, a Samsung Galaxy, don't know which one exactly, an LG Optimus Life, or a Fujitsu Aeros 5. I think that's 5. I don't know if it's V. Anyways, main reason why they bought it was because they either, one, liked the color, two, they liked the contract price, and what does Kaho think? Obviously, Kaho likes Sony.
She said that like 3 times. 4 times. She had
3,
said
4
I
times.
like Sony when she was holding her phone. It was pretty fun.
So obviously, none of our Kagoshima counterparts had an iPhone. It's still popular, but it wasn't released until 2008, and one of their major, major phone carriers, Docomo, did not carry the iPhone until very recently, and only then did sales for them start to increase. And yes, Costco is in Japan. And I can't see the play button.
We'll still have to refine our cards then later. Right now it's Friday, so it's actually it's not too busy right now. On the weekend, we got really busy. On the weekend, was waiting for crazy. Do they have? All right, so like in Japan.
So obviously, unfortunately, I had to stop it at the food because they have different menu items than the Costco's over here. For instance, let's see, I think they were talking about the bulgogi bake, which actually sounds really awesome. I want to try one.
Yeah, the bake anything that's different.
So why is Costco successful in Japan? Because at first it was believed that Costco would not be successful in Japan for some reason. But as of today, they have roughly about 20 locations in Japan itself, and they're still continuing to build them. But why exactly is it successful? Also, if you do plan on going to Japan, you should definitely think about bringing your Costco card if you have one, because apparently they accept it.
What? Yeah, memberships are international.
Nice. I didn't know that. So their success was pretty much given to the fact that they sell bulk items for cheap. So it definitely helps out houses or households that have multi-generational families. So in other words, the grandparents live with your parents, and you and your potential wife or husband also lives with them as well. Or if you're friends with somebody, you could also split that product. And then just like in the US, they also changed what exactly they sell in accordance to what season it is. So in short, their business practices are typically copied worldwide.
All right, so obviously I'm going to be talking about small business in Japan. So at one point in Japan, small businesses were seen as very vulnerable enterprises. A lot of banks didn't really trust them at one point, and there was some push for government aid for them. It wasn't until later that they realized that small businesses were the backbone of the economy. In fact, small business almost anywhere around the world is the backbone of any country's economy. And in Japan, more than 99%, which is about 4.2 million of all businesses in Japan are either small or medium enterprises. And that's a considerable amount. United States, I believe, is 98%. Although then again, the United States is much bigger, so our numbers will probably be a lot more bigger as well. And small businesses and medium enterprises whole and together in Japan consist of about 70% of all employment within Japan. While impact on the economy, as everyone remembers during the 2008-2009 recession, obviously that was pretty much a global crisis. In Japan, it was hit a lot more, mostly because of the fact that small businesses is pretty much the backbone. There was a loss of about 14 yen, and a lot of small businesses had to foreclose and all that because they weren't able to pay back their loans and they had to default on them. And of course, like I said, they're the backbone of the Japanese economy. When the whole global economy crashed, or almost crashed, a lot of businesses were hit, and a lot of them were in the negative up till around 2010, and they're still kind of recovering at this point. Top 5 small and medium enterprises in Japan. As you see here, retail is one of the biggest ones, so is service, following restaurants, lodging, construction, and manufacturing. Following that, we have real estate industry, we have wholesales, health and welfare, education, learning support, transportation, ICT industry, and finance and insurance. That's pretty much most of it for that. As for financing a small business, my family has had experience with trying to finance a business, and it's always been difficult. In Japan, bank loans are to receive because of economic risk. After the financial crisis in 2008, a lot of banks were less than eager to obviously give out loans to small businesses, mostly because they were afraid that it would default on them. And banks tend to trust large companies because of lower chances of them defaulting on loans. However, they have been starting to be more lenient on giving out loans, and through the help of government aid, they're starting to give them out a lot more for small businesses to grow. And there is government aid. However, during the time of the financial crisis, not many people knew that there was any type of government aid to help them keep their business or help them from defaulting on their loans. And because of that, a lot of their businesses closed. There has been more effort to educate people on government aid and the types that are available. An example of one is some government aids would help support SME, which is small medium enterprises, by helping renovate physical infrastructure. If they have a building that needs to be if there's something that needs to be fixed inside, the government will try to help them in getting that fixed. And they also help with intangibles such as development of human resources, which is pretty much helping train employees, giving them the proper training that they need in order to do the work that needs to be done. Small business in Kagoshima. So a few questions that I asked some of them is small businesses that they usually encounter or see within Kagoshima. The major answers were usually liquor stores, small restaurants, video rental stores, and grocery stores / bakeries. That coincides with some of the stuff that they usually like to buy from them, which is mostly food, sake, specifically cake, and rental videos as well. Now, I also asked if they by chance knew anyone that owned a small business. They said they did. They said one of them knew students of theirs who has a business for 5 years called Mayuri Gardens. However, unfortunately, at the time, our whole group thought Mayuri Gardens was some sort of flower shop. However, after the questioning of the students, on my own research part, I found out that Mayuri Gardens was actually a mall within Kagoshima.
A what?
Mall, a shopping mall.
Oh, I see.
So whether they meant that they knew someone who had a business within Mayuri Gardens, or whether or not they actually owned Mayuri Gardens, remains to be seen. So that's kind of questioning. However, I personally like to speculate that the person owns a small business, because if they had a business within a mall for about 5 years, it's obviously a very successful business. In order to pay the rent for the mall, which is usually very expensive for just that location, and to make enough profit, I'd say that's actually a pretty good business, whatever it is that it is, because we didn't ask what kind it was.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about product sales in Japan. So as opposed to what you saw with Mercedes and GM, those are two foreign companies going to Japan. This is actual product in Japan. So we're going to look at the trends in sales between specific products. And then we also look at the economic changes, any events that could impact consumer actions, and also the overall norms in Japanese culture, things that they have as ideals. We take both of those, put them together, and we can see if a product will rise in sales, be successful, if a product will maintain in the market, or if it will tank. So first of all, I asked the Kagoshima students about certain products. So we asked them about products that they buy in different frequencies, and also products that are exclusive to Kagoshima. So some of the questions I asked was, what do you buy most often? First off was supermarket things such as snack foods and drinks, and then Kaho specifically mentions rice balls. And then they also mentioned clothing. Another question which I asked was also what kind of products often see different types of popularity or are growing in popularity. They say that any kind of clothing that's specific to the season that's coming up will obviously see a change in popularity just because it suits their needs. I also asked them what do they buy less often. I gave them an example of like luxury items. They said food. To be specific, it's food that comes from restaurants. So like walk-in restaurants where you sit down and you eat rather than you pick up some food and pay for it. And then I asked them what are some foods that what are foods? What are some things that you would never buy? Kaho actually, because all of Kaho's answers were food. It was really funny. She said she would never buy spicy foods. And yeah. And I can't remember who had said it specifically, but one of them also mentioned tobacco. So we praise them on that, and it brings us on to another topic later on in the future. But I also asked them what are some products that are iconic in Kagoshima. So they have shochu, which is sake made from not all of these combined, but there is a barley shochu, there's sweet potato shochu, there is buckwheat shochu, and then there's also a rice shochu. Then there's also Sakurajima Daikon, which is it's a different type of radish that you would normally see in Japan. It's actually round, and it can grow to very, very large sizes. And then they also have the kurobuta, which in English is actually a Berkshire pig. It's a rare breed that is usually only seen in Kagoshima and in certain areas in England. And they're known for them having very dark black coats and also being very, very delicious. They're like the prime rib of pork. And then so you have like little images of shochu, a Berkshire pig, and the middle, which is the Sakurajima Daikon. It is big. So we go back to the product sales, and so we looked at 3 specific products: tobacco, fragrances, which are like perfumes and colognes, and then we also looked at beer. So we looked at the trends in the sales and the possible reasons to explain for the trends. And so we used Euromonitor International, which is a business that they make market surveys on a lot of these products. It's not just Japan, but international. So first of all is tobacco. And so what we saw in the trend was that the amount of tobacco being sold is decreasing. So you'll see these little plus and minuses. That's usually like a positive or a negative because of that trend. So it's pretty good that the amount sold is decreasing, and then also that the price is rising. In a business sense, you never want to hear the price of your product is rising. But for this kind of topic where it's tobacco, what's known about it, it's usually it's a pretty good thing that they're not going to be able to sell as much. And then this is a rather popular vending machine with a very popular ad about the guy, the strongman smoking. And then so from the chart, this shows the volume, this shows the value. by volume, it's actually steadily decreasing since 2007. This was taken on, I think, like 2012, so it only goes up to this far. And so so this is by, I think, millions, millions of sticks of cigarettes. They're actually like going down by hundreds of millions, like billions. Sorry, I didn't notice at that point. They're going down by billions by like each year. And also the value is going up, even though that they're selling less, which you can, if economics taught me anything, it means that the price is actually rising, even though that they are selling less. So we want to think of why is this trend happening? So first of all, we want to see about like product in itself. So in 2010, there was actually a rather large tax on tobacco. The FCTC, they started enacting laws that would tax tobacco and actually restrict its ability to advertise. And then also the earthquake had damaged several facilities that produced the tobacco. So not only was there a high tax, but there was also shortages to the tobacco. So the price had to not only went up because of the tax, but it skyrocketed because they were short on tobacco. And then also, tobacco smokers are an aging society where the much older demographic of smokers, they're slowly leaving the earth. And I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say die, but that rather large demographic used to be highly tolerant on smoking because it was just a popular thing. It's the same thing with like people in the 50s here. But now Japan as a society is working towards smoking less and less and less until they meet any kind of ideal. Also, so they had the acts passed, and the increasing population of non-smokers, people are becoming a lot more educated as to the health risks of smoking. So that definitely cuts down on any kind of sales. So from that, we can actually forecast that the sales of tobacco will not only go down by more, but that they're actually going to start bringing in less money. So it doesn't mean that they're bringing in more money while they're selling less because of the taxes. It's because actually people are expected to buy less and less and less. So overall, it's kind of a good thing because it's a topic definitely popular here with people should be smoking less, and Japan's kind of starting to work towards that too. And then so then we also took a look at fragrances, which are like the perfume and colognes and all the nice smelling things that we can buy. So looking at it, we actually see that sales have been steadily declining for quite a long time, and it's showing signs of slowing. It's not as steep as it used to be. It's a positive and a negative. From this, we can almost predict that it's kind of a maintaining product rather than it being like smoking where it's just going to keep going down. And then these are just two different types of perfume made by Issey Miyake, who's a famous Japanese fashion artist.
Yeah.
So it shows this is from value, which is the amount that they bring in. They can't measure volume like they can with tobacco because tobacco is regulated. But they show in value that it's actually starting to decrease, but it's not as much as tobacco at all. It's only by like, I think hundreds of millions of dollars, which to them is almost nothing, but to us it's like, cool. It's not going as steadily as tobacco is going, so you can kind of see that, it's maybe people are not interested in fragrances like this. So one of the major reasons is actually younger people like children and adolescents don't have much contact with it because Japan as a society is rather hygienic and rather clean. So they would rather prefer being clean and not smelling like anything bad rather than having the chance of spraying something good on to mask it. It's very different from American sales of fragrances where we have very, very different types of quality in fragrances, and we can sell them off because I assume that we're lazy about taking showers here. So like you actually do have like things like Axe and Polo, which are two different fragrances on different spectrums. But Axe is almost just as popular as Polo because here it's a lot more, the adolescents do come into more contact because we do have more contact with the fragrances. So there's a decline in Japan, and there's an international fragrance market, and they want to try and revitalize this, want to revive this market, bring it back to what it used to be. So they start to work on, they start to ride on this idea that in Japan, the sales for deodorants and candles and nice smelling things other than cologne are starting to go up. So they're saying, oh yeah, maybe they'll start buying the things that we sell. And then they're also trying these events. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention, they're trying events where they're going to be naming in Japan, fragrance of the year, or fragrance festivals, if you could say it. And then there's also, they ride on the idea, or the fact that more and more people are buying through the internet, and they're buying luxury items, something that they don't normally just go over to the mall and browse for. It's kind of things at home that they can use in their own time. From that, we still see a decrease, or we can still forecast a decrease. It's not as steady. I wish I could get percentages, but I don't want to do math. I'm sorry, but it's not as bad as tobacco, where it just starts to plummet and plummet and plummet. So what we can predict is that fragrances, because of the culture, it's not a bad business to be in, but it's not the best business. And then the best and most prominent of all that we all love, beer. So we have a couple of advertisements. That's Harrison Ford. Yeah, so Kieran actually likes to use Harrison Ford in their advertisements with this iconic phrase, "Kirin raga bir o kudasai." And these were taken from Japander, which is a website that takes Japanese advertisements, usually seen on TV, but they star American celebrities. So it's a pretty cool aspect when it comes to Japanese advertisements, because they like to appeal to the popular rather than here where we try to do facts. So this is another one. It's only about 30 seconds. It's very funny.
Everybody drinks Kirin Lager Beer.
I tried to find the Asahi one, but I couldn't figure out the second. Yeah, and Alder are also prominent. These are for super hops. I couldn't find those because they were quick times and they don't like to work with Google. So what we saw with the trend was that the amount being sold is actually declining, and if you look into it a lot more, it's not so much of a negative. It's an if/or kind of thing, because even though it's declining, you can see increases in the premium beers that are like 4.2% alcohol by volume or higher. They're also known as higher purity beers. So those are actually increasing in sales. Same thing with imported beers of all degrees. So rather than it's regardless. And then also there's a trend for no and low alcohol beers. There's actually a non-alcoholic beer for kids, and I'm trying to remember the name of it because I saw some of them, but I wanted to find like yeah, it has pictures of like kids doing like they all have like kanpai, and it's really funny. But like there's this increase in the sales of low and non-alcoholic. So there's a trend there, and from that, can you click that? Yeah. From that, even though we see that the amount being sold is decreasing, we're actually seeing that the amount of lower qualities are decreasing, but the amount of higher qualities like premium and imported, as well as the non-alcoholic, are rising. So it's not a bad thing. So from that, we want to see the reasons why it's happening, and we see that there's an aging population. So the demographic for current beer, oh wow, I actually said it. Current beer drinkers, they're dying out. So these older beers, the more economic beers, they're not doing as popular because there's going to be a higher population of younger beer drinkers, and they have their own taste rather than they have their own taste and their own peer pressures as opposed to the older beer drinkers. So there's this change in taste, and they're noticing that this increase in the imports and the increase in the premiums is that it's because people don't want the cheaper beers. They would rather pay more for a higher quality beer and just buy less of it rather than save their money and buy a bunch of really low quality, just watered down kind of beverages. And so from that, the trend's going to continue, but it's actually going to be very successful for anybody who wants to do premium lagers such as Asahi and Kirin. I don't know about Super Hops, and Sapporo. They're all going to do very well. And then the same thing with the trend for the low and non-alcoholic beers. Those are going to go up even more. But you're going to see this first, and you're probably going to go, oh no, they're not drinking as much beer. And so in a quick summation for all of you that didn't want to listen to us. So Japan being a very commercial nation, meaning that they're very known for their business, and there's a very, very, very strong business connection between Japan and other nations. They do a lot of business with foreign companies, so you will see them in Japan as you go there, and you will see these wants for the foreign nation to appeal to the Japanese. And America is also working towards that too. Then, do you want to do it? Yeah, go ahead.
As I mentioned multiple times already, but small businesses are extremely influential to the economy of Japan. Another thing I forgot to mention about government aid is that they want what they plan for these small businesses is for them to slowly grow into medium and then larger corporations. Car makers such as Toyota and Honda started out as just small garage places, and they built into this huge companies now. That's Japan's major plan for these small businesses. In fact, they even are helping some of them try to expand their businesses overseas, internationally as well.
Yeah, and then this isn't rather than exclusive to Japan. This is because business in almost any nation is pretty much identical. That if in the market they want to sell products that are going to do well, and they want to try and find ways to stabilize products that aren't going to be doing so well. So you could see businesses taking action, making advertisements. So for the tobacco, where you see it's going to just start declining, the business itself is probably going to appeal to its demographic, the ones that will stay loyal to them, rather than work towards trying to get new smokers. But the beer industry is going to advertise as, oh look, premium beers. Oh look, very there's a diet beer that Lucy Liu did too. I don't remember the name, start with an S, but they're going to kind of stroke their ego with, we're not low quality anymore, we're going to be doing premium. And then, so we can also compare certain aspects. You want to talk about yours?
Yeah,
So I don't.
well, yeah. Business in Japan is very similar to Western nation business. There are some practices that are a bit different. Hence, advertising is different. The way they like to advertise their products is much different compared to America, mostly because of how we perceive the product and how we try to push it. Another thing is that a majority of what small businesses exist are identical to American. As for starting a small business, if I recall correctly, because there's so much government aid, it's much more easier to start a business compared to here in America. From my experience with my parents and my sisters starting small businesses, they've been difficult. It usually took months of paperwork processed out, and then it took more time to actually try to get the financing for it. And in the end, the restaurant my parents once had when I was a kid failed, and the business that my sister had also failed as well, although there's more personal reasons for that as well. However, there is one person I know who has had a successful small business, and that's my uncle. He owns, I believe, 2 grocery stores in San Francisco. And so far, since he started in 1998, he's been going strong with those 2 businesses.
And then, so also in the market, everything's going to change when it comes to Japan, when it comes to America, when it comes to Russia, and when it comes to other nations. It's going to be their culture that affects the market. So, like you saw with fragrances, that's a rather cultural conflict, because in certain, like in schools and in the workplace, they are often prohibit the use of fragrances. So that does change the market, but it doesn't completely take it out. So they with other products such as the tobacco, where it's because of the health risks and the education towards it, it's becoming this like red flag topic, and it is pushing towards a similar American ideal that we have with tobacco, where we still see a lot of advertising for non-smoking. We had like recent legislation about no public smoking, and so it seems to be this old demographic, this old change, where it's not just Japan and America and stuff. It's all working towards this one ideal, where it's not just a connection. You're going to be seeing multiple connections between other nations and other values. Sorry, Fried. Yeah. So this is another advertisement for Sankyo Pachinko. We thought you'd like it.
One day I caught a cab, and the driver said to me, "Today you're my first customer, and maybe my last." I got off the seaside. The fisherman said, "Today I didn't catch a thing. This summer's not going to be a good season." On the way home, a young woman called out to me, and she said, "Nobody wants to date me. Again, I'm going to bed alone again. Everyone's having really bad luck, but I'm having good luck." Sorry. Pachinko wa Sankyo.
So for the Pachinko ads, he often has like this ideal of him being lucky because he goes to Sankyo Pachinko. This isn't one of his first ones. He has actually like 5 other advertisements where he has this almost lust for Pachinko. And it's very interesting to see it, because if you've seen Nicolas Cage, like in American films, all that kind of stuff, he has this like serious demeanor and stuff. But then when he goes into advertising, they say you do like, okay, you love it. And Nicolas Cage goes, no, I don't just love it. He takes it to the level.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage. I mean,
That's it. So then after that, I think we just references, right? Yeah. So those are references. You don't want to read those.
And if you do read them, you have too much time on your hands.
Yeah. So yeah, we didn't want to take up too much time. We ended up taking too much time. So if you guys do have comments or questions, go ahead and ask them.
How much is a typical pack of cigarettes in Japan?
It's not just typical. You want to look for popularity.
So like 7-star or mild star.
7-star.
It depends on how much,
last time I was
how
there, I
high
was like,
quality cigarette that you want.
No, I just said that.
last time I was there, I remember seeing one of the vending machines, and it was like $7-10, I think.
For a pack, and that's for something like 7-star. Most of the people what you would see, I didn't mention it, but what you would end up seeing is very devout people that do want to keep smoking but don't want to end up paying more money. They're going to change their own. They're going to change their own lifestyle. So rather than buying 7-star or anything more popular like that, they're going to buy these more economic brands. They kind of cheaper cigarettes, but they're going to still be able to smoke.
I know Winston.
But I guess what was this one? Winston?
Yeah, Winston.
290円。
So yeah, about $3. I don't know specifically when this picture was taken. I wish I did. That way I could have probably told you what it will cost at the time. You first, because you talked before. Sorry.
I just thought of this right now, but like, since it's a vending machine, they don't check ID, huh?
No, they do not. No. There is
Which is another big thing, because they're FCT. I don't know if it's
FCTC.
yeah. They pushed a lot of what do you want to call it? They pushed a lot of paper in order to completely eliminate the public aspect of selling tobacco. They're trying to push that, and they're trying to say, oh, we need to get these vending machines off the streets. We need to try and, it needs to be completely controlled, because they don't want kids smoking. What you will also see, not only with the market, is that if you go to Japan, maybe 10, 20 years, you'll probably see cigarettes behind a counter where you have to say, I want those, and they will say, oh, how old are you? As opposed to you just walking down the street and grabbing something from the vending machine.
Also, apparently, from what I remember, kids are more or less inclined to buy from a vending machine, mostly because, one, they can get in trouble, a lot of trouble because of the law, and the law is really strict in Japan.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you had your hand up for like a second. Did you have something to say?
Yes, I can talk now?
Yes.
Okay,
Release
so,
that.
you mentioned on the card page, like, something about incorporating Japanese needs. Can I get some examples of that?
Well, it's pretty much like the left-hand side versus the right-hand side,
That's
because,
a purely American thing though, right?
right, actually, no, because about
French, I think.
70% of the world's population actually drives with the driver's side on the left-hand side.
Are you sure that's not because 7% of drivers exist in the US?
No, because let's see,
That's
I
a
think-
big possibility. I mean, driving is extremely more prominent in America. That's why you will see American companies like GM not want to conform, because they're making money without having to change a single thing. Where you have
bad business practice.
it's a terrible
Until
business
all
practice,
these
but they're making more
falls
money
out.
here than,
Then you're international.
yeah, we're stubborn.
So,
Right.
anything else other than that?
I know some Japanese cards, I think, actually, I know a lot of them when I was in Japan. A lot of them had like TVs or like screens that actually broadcasted stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I would assume more technologically, what do you want to call it? Adaptable features in cars. So ones where you would be able to plug in your iPod and such. Even though you do usually see it here, it probably would have been more efficient and popular if they had done it in Japan first, where technology seems to be a very what do you want to call it? Very popular market. Because it's the same thing with like vending machines, where in Japan they started with vending machines having like a cell phone pay feature. So like they rarely even have it here yet.
I've seen it, I think.
Also, another thing would be the size of the car. GM probably still likes to make their cars big and American style. However, when you go to Japan, you see that a lot.
Weren't Hummers sold in Japan
Yes,
too?
yes, one of
Hummers
the
actually
mentioned
sold in
Hummers
Japan.
being sold there too.
Yeah,
For some odd reason,
some reason,
don't
yeah.
know why.
Hummers.
Okay,
Go ahead.
there was something about mobile tech affecting car sales.
Yes,
I think
because the main thing with cars is that, whenever there was a meeting, and if they didn't want to do it over the phone, they would usually have to drive over to a meeting location in order to have that meeting. But with current technology, say like somewhere, a company in Tokyo and somewhere in Kyoto, they want to have a meeting, all they have to do is like pull up Skype or even Google Hangouts.
They don't actually
and they
have to
can
go
meet that way.
anywhere to do it. And at the same time, there's also that risk with driving and using a cell phone. That's for the more pedestrian safety kind of awareness, where it's a big thing where it's like, don't text and drive, but we like to do that every single day. In Japan, it's like, it's not so much of a big deal, but they also stress that, if we want to keep selling cars, that's going to happen. That brings up the possibility I don't want. But anything else?
Okay. So why would people not know about government aid for small businesses?
Well, at the time, not many people, not a lot of people who open small business are technically educated to know how to run one. And then recently there has been some efforts to actually help educate them, make them realize all these options are available for them. And that's been a growing trend.
Yeah, it also tends to be the lack of education with almost any other kind of aspect.
Also, you have to take into account small mom and pop businesses are sometimes inherited. And so sometimes the kid doesn't really know how to run one, or
Probably also the idea of privacy,
privacy
where
as
it's
well.
kind of like it's our business, we want to do it, and kind of they don't think of other people coming out to help them, especially like the government.
Okay,
So basically, so basically what you're saying is that a lot of kids, for example, who inherit their businesses, they don't go to college to learn how to do the business first. They just inherit it without.
Well,
Ever
some of the
having-
times, for example, let's say the family runs a like tamago business, like they just make confectionaries and stuff. The kid's going to learn how to make the confectionaries more than rely on how to successfully manage it.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay, so more efforts to educate them in what way?
There's been a lot more government advertising of their aids. There's been a lot of articles going out that are trying to give awareness to this kind of stuff as well. Also, when someone's trying to open a business, they actually are now also helping them find a location where to put their business as well.
Okay, there was mention about video rentals. Do you have any idea of why video rentals seem to be doing better in Japan than they are here in the US?
Actually, I have no clue. I did not look too much into that one.
Because we Americans are lazy.
Lazy?
No, it's just bored.
And that.
Do you know if they have Netflix?
No, they don't actually. They do not
I
have
think that probably would have
Yeah,
great,
it's probably a.
great impact on whether
Yeah.
or not.
That was a good call, yeah. That's probably what we.
That is actually probably good
So
reason why
the fact that they can't just stream,
video content. In
yeah,
fact,
video
actually,
content off the internet rather than, other than.
now that I
pirate or
really
something.
think about it, the reason why video rentals, I don't know if she's listening. The reason why video rentals don't do so well is because, for one, there is no Netflix in Japan.
Okay.
And two, there's been a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for here, policies against trying to stream stuff.
Anti-piracy.
Anti-piracy stuff, which
Yeah,
which
they're doing
hampers
it.
a lot of streaming sites.
It's becoming extremely popular also with the recent like anime and manga stuff. So Japan had officially declared anime and manga as one of their
Cultural thing.
cultural products or something like that. So they're trying to preserve it. So they're actually going to major sites that have all of it up for free, and they're trying to shut them down. So,
DCMM or DCMA, something like that.
DMCA.
DMCA.
Digital Millennium
Yeah,
Copyright
copyright.
something. Alliance Association Act.
Yeah.
Something.
One
So-
of those A words.
So yeah, if they can't end up streaming some of their favorite things,
Yeah.
the next best thing is for them to either borrow from a friend or go down to the rental store. Or a library if it's.
Did your tobacco page have anything on electronic cigarettes?
They made those illegal.
Oh, why?
They had more fear of the health risks with using the nicotine in the electronic cigarettes rather than with nicotine in general tobacco, like smoking tobacco. I couldn't get too far into it, but it wasn't an FCTP.
See,
I can't get it. See,
Influence.
FCTC act. It was like it was more of something pushed by
Taste the same.
the medicinal business in itself. They were afraid of the like liquid and all the chemicals used in the tobacco in itself, rather than having like I assume this is like redundant, but naturally processed tobacco. But it's illegal to sell in Japan, but they can import it. But it's heavily regulated. You can only get about a month's worth of the nicotine per month. So although e-cigarettes are not completely prohibited, they are prohibited to be sold in Japan.
When you say smokeless tobacco, are you talking about chewing tobacco, other types of
Smokeless tobacco.
It just said smokeless tobacco.
Oh, smokeless tobacco would be, yes, chewing tobacco. I don't know any other kind of tobacco in which. I look at this general idea. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on you in any single way. I look at this way just so that. But yeah, smokeless tobacco would be chewing tobacco and any other form of tobacco in which you do not ignite.
Okay. Last
Sounds a lot cooler when you say ignite.
Sorry. Do you know anything about like starting businesses online? How that works there versus here?
So, okay, I think that would be known as a micro enterprise. Usually micro enterprises don't exactly have like an infrastructure, kind of like a building to set up in. So like, exactly.
It's a lot less.
It's a lot less work to start one up. especially since it's online. The only possible thing you have to worry about is where to put products, so maybe a warehouse.
Yeah.
Again, the government also helps with micro enterprises as well. So if you need to allocate goods, they would help you with that as well.
Do you know anything about doing that in the US?
In the U.S. Oh.
Micro enterprises in the U.S. They're it's tricky when it comes to almost anything in the
It
U.S.
is tricky.
Or not U.S. but like internet. I'm not very like knowledgeable in this, but I would assume it is the same ideal where you would most likely have to register yourself as having an income and all that kind of stuff, and register any other kind of buildings or facilities that you would require in order to go along with it. Yeah, any kind of they have a word for it, and I forgot about it.
What?
There's a specific word to mean any kind of item, building, person that you would use in order to use the business. I completely forgot the word.
I don't remember that.
But yeah, it would be the same thing, where you have to register all that stuff and then.
But does the US do government aid the way they do?
I would assume so. It was a big push to help small businesses,
Yes,
so I would
there was a
assume
big push.
micro enterprises too.
Yeah, so there should be some form of helping here in the U.S. as well. Although I don't know if they're as devoted to it as Japan is.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, there.
I was just gonna comment on what Nancy said earlier with the like vending machines with cigarettes. When I went to Japan, we went to one of the hotels and there was a vending machine for beer.
Yeah, they have those too. I wanted to do a vending machine for beer. It's almost it's the same thing where beer is being acknowledged as not so much of a health risk, because unlike tobacco, where if you keep smoking it does have severe health risks. Beer in moderation doesn't have as bad, depends on your actual biology. But they do have vending machines for beer, and I remember they even have like little areas where you can dispose of cans and the bottles, which is like awesome.
Can you drink in public?
Yeah. Here
you can.
And you can also it's different with tobacco too, because in America they say you can't smoke indoors, but you can smoke outdoors. In Japan, it's actually reversed. You can smoke indoors because that's like your own little space. It's the same thing where it's like hospitals. That's kind of the no-nos, but like you're like small areas like restaurants and stuff. But when you go outside, you're not allowed to smoke. And then they also pushed on top of that the no public smoking.
Yeah.
Which was so like now in restaurants and other public areas like stores and such, you won't be able to smoke.
I think in restaurants they have like smoking areas there where like.
It's just smoking areas.
Yeah, we even did it here, which you probably won't see most likely. You have to go up to like Nevada and all the casinos and stuff. They do have.
Smoking.
I can't think of any other word than quarantined areas for smoking. But
Sectioned off an area.
Yeah, they do have sections for smoking, and I assume that they do the same thing in Japan. Otherwise, if you couldn't smoke anywhere else other than your house, I assume that a lot of people would not be leaving their house.
I think that's in like workplace. They have like each company has their own designated place.
Yeah, they do that too. They have designated areas, and it's like the same thing with America, but they're like unofficial. It's usually backdoor areas.
So they enforce.
I don't mean to look at you again, okay?
I know, yes.
Yeah, we're sorry too.
No.
That's all like.
Oh, there's another group? Okay, yeah. If you got another question, go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
Like, how do they enforce like no public smoking rules? Like, is it? Because I know like we have this entire like 25 feet from a building thing, but no one ever follows it.
Yeah, nobody does.
No one does. No.
There's an ashtray like 15 feet away from the building. I haven't figured out why nobody's.
Yeah, there's one like right in
Is
the.
it?
Yeah, it's right on.
Isn't smoking banned on campus too?
No.
No,
No, it's just
They- they-
25
they're
feet
trying
from
to
the
pass it
building.
on their
they're trying to pass it, but because smoking is still a prominent thing, we would rather have smokers be smoking in areas where you're not going to be getting the smoke in the room, trapped in the room, giving people secondhand smoke. They'd rather you be outside smoking and then just like the smoke go up into the air. But yeah, I'm not sure as to how they enforce it where it comes to public smoking, but I do, there was no information on the Euro Mobile International.
I don't know this one.
I don't remember. Sorry. But I would assume because there's, like in Japan, there's actually a lot of police,
Yeah.
not just police stations, but like police boxes.
Peer
Where,
pressure.
Huh?
Peer pressure. you think?
not very, wait, what?
Wait, what?
No, there's actually, there's actually like a lot of areas where there is some kind of enforcement, and also like it's also like a social, it's a social norm kind of thing where you don't smoke outside. So even though you might do it, unless you're like this big dude rolling with like 10 other guys, people would come up to you and give you like $30 or like somebody would stop you. It's the same thing with children at the vending machines.
I think people give a pressure. Like
Society.
dating and.
Social pressure. Social pressure, that's the word.
Better than people and they just.
Well, good. It's like what you drew upon in like the first day, where Japan is like a group thing, so they want to be a part of it.
Even the cell phone, you cannot talk on the phone.
Yeah,
in
you
the
can.
train.
Social
in Japan.
pressure.
Yeah.
You can feel the, gaze from the
In the
people.
US, I think we don't do that.
And also Tokyo, especially big cities, there are tons of people. If you smoke, you get fired. Yeah, so that's.
Okay, yeah, a lot of streets and a lot of flammable things in Japan. Did you have a question on? I'm sorry, you were moved, but you had a question.
I was just gonna comment on the smoking thing.
Go ahead.
I was in Harajuku in June, and they actually have now set up booths on the sidewalks. So
For smoking?
For smoking, so. if
Booths,
you have-
like you can actually like close the door and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, like
There's
one of those look
little
like,
stalls, there's.
yeah,
little
like bus
stalls
station
you
kind of
go and
area.
Stand in and you smoke, and it's pretty intense.
Up
There
there.
were like 10 people waiting in line.
Wait in line?
Yeah,
It's a booth. It's a booth. It's not a TARDIS.
any other kind of questions, comments,
And also
concerns?
people who don't smoke get influenced by the smoking.
Yeah.
More. Second influence is huge, so.
Which
that's
is,
why.
yeah, one of the restrictions on advertising smoking was they're not allowed to advertise any sort of smoking near a school. So like they could do it almost anywhere else, but it had once been, you can't, if there's a billboard next to a school or anything, it can't be anything related to smoking, it can't even have like a cigarette on it.
Yeah, so you mentioned before, about fragrance products, how their sales are going down. And I was wondering if that included incense, because I would think that. it's kind of-
No, fragrances specifically in the idea of perfumes and colognes.
Oh.
Those kind of luxury items, because like incense do have some kind of ritualistic and cultural kind of use to it, where
Yeah.
fragrances are strict luxury. So like if you go back to that,
Which one?
I don't know, it's down.
Down somewhere?
Yeah, go up.
Oh,
So
right
sales of
there.
fragrances, there's actually like a different grade of it. So like you'll only see like these premiums and the really high numbers because it is a luxury good and it's usually used for people that can't afford it, and they do want to give off this what do you want? Appearance of being
Clean.
sophisticated and I would assume Westernly in some senses. But yeah, that's another thing that they're writing on, which is with the incense, because people do buy incense, people do buy candles, and they're like hoping people will buy
Yeah.
perfume.
And I have a question about.
Go ahead.
Okay, you
That's
said
all
that in some regions, people has to buy the car every 2 years or 3 years. Is it true? I've never heard it, so.
The only sense I would assume is areas that where it would be very extremely enforced about like environmental stuff. So like say you had
Yeah,
SUV or something, and then the electric car comes out.
It's more in the environmental sense, because way back when there were no electronic vehicles or electric vehicles, over here in the US, we have to get a smog check after however many years after you buy a brand new car.
I think it's miles.
And then,
After miles.
no, it's actually years.
It's
now.
huge.
Years now?
Years now. So
Because they
what
can't regulate
happened
miles.
was in Japan, since they're so conscious about the environment, is that they would actually say, hey, we'll give you some money if you bring in your old vehicle so that we can crush it. And then you can use that money to potentially buy another car. But what this also did was it actually also gave people more jobs because they
There's
needed to
people-
dismantle the
Yeah.
cars themselves.
To the point where they can actually crush it
Right.
and recycle parts.
Those are kind of cool. I didn't know that. I probably wouldn't have done it, but it does seem like a nice aspect if you would
Yeah,
just
but-
don't get attached to your car for too long.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that though, if you do become attached to your vehicle, you have to pay a fine.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like, what about people that wanted to collect cars?
Yeah, it's probably.
Because there are people that like collect cars, even though they don't drive them, it's like, it's still there.
Right, but, well, remember, over here with the DMV, we have the,
The smog checks and all that.
well, no, not the smog checks. If you plan to operate your vehicle, you have to pay the fine
Yeah.
or whatnot. But if you say that you do not plan on operating the vehicle at any time, you still have to pay for a license. It's just that it's heavily reduced.
So it's a bit like the Obama's crash for clunkers.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Except they were doing it a long time ago.
Yeah. So he stole it from the Japanese.
Yeah, it was a lot, there was a lot of mix between Japanese culture and American culture when it came to policies. Businesses had some of the strongest influence on each other. You're gonna see more identical aspects when it comes to business because since it's like very prominent, businesses want to conform to other businesses in order to stay competitive and still like survive in the market. So even though you might not think that some aspects are identical, they kind of are. So, are we done?
One time.